Okay, good. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the January 8th, 2025 EAC monthly meeting. I believe everybody received a copy of last month's minutes. And are there any changes, edits, objections to those minutes? Okay, can I have a motion to approve said minutes?
Motion made.
That
Second.
is- All in favor?
Aye.
As well. Very good. Public comments, I can see right now that we don't have anybody in the theater for public comments, so we'll move beyond that. If they do, then we'll certainly allow them to join. I would be looking at this point from a student report from James, but Matt just didn't hear from him. Okay. Well, that's me. That sounded a lot like my annoying voice. Okay, then quickly through project updates. Sustainability, I will take the first crack at that. We have not had any movement since the last meeting. We're still 99.45% complete with our community greenhouse gas inventory being the last open item. But I have now scheduled a meeting with Peter Buck. Peter Buck is of the Penn State University Sustainability Institution. He can walk us through that. John, I think you gave me what I need, but it's not a McCandless thing. It's not an EAC thing. It's not a Jeff Petro thing. They are just not cooperating on this last 0.655% for our gold standard credibility recertification. So I will continue to push on that and be a nudge, and I will report back next month what's happening with that. Here's James. We'll let James get settled in. Ken, could you just give us an update on the numbers from the last month from deer management?
Going to do a tad bit more than that, but last month the suburban whitetail hunters harvested 10 deer and we had 22 deer killed on the highways. I saw 2 dead deer on McKnight Road today, and that's not part of our tally because we don't have McKnight or 19 year state roads. The thing I wanted to throw out there is that because we're having a cold winter, we're actually having a winter this year. We have a ordinance in the township about not feeding deer. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is that when you concentrate the deer and draw them into residential areas, you can spread disease and they're more susceptible to being hit by cars. But the other thing that is, a little less known is that the deer respond to not having much food to eat, and all the bacteria, their ruminants, settles down. And if you go out and say, wow, that looks at those hungry deer, they need some food, and you put a bunch of corn out there, they're going to eat that corn, they're going to go back into the woods and bloat and die. So it's one of those things of, you think you're being nice, but you're actually killing the deer by providing them food at this time. So that's just a caution for people that are inclined to look at those poor hungry deer out there in the cold weather and put out some corn for them. You may actually end up killing them. That's really all I have for now. The archery season is over the end of January, and we'll see where things go from there.
Have we ever done a McMail tip on deer management?
We do usually have something in August to try to get property owners to allow hunting on their property.
Okay. Any questions for Ken? Thank you. Yeah, great. So are we up to 46 in for the year?
46 for the archery, and I think it's 80 some for 88 for roadkill. And if sincerely, if you take a real low number, the insurance companies don't provide data on that. But if you just say $5,000 an incident, you're looking at well over $500,000 of damage, besides any injuries.
Good. Thank you, Ken. Next up is roadside cleanup, which we know is going to be April 26th. I don't have it written on my thing, but I believe that's the case. And as Matt suggested, this is a good month to at least start thinking about some of the pre-planning. And I was just thinking, supplies, John, we're gonna come to you. I'll come to you. I did meet, and it's further down the agenda, but I did meet with the township manager. And he suggested, he goes, it always looks better whenever you buy a bunch of those shirts and everybody has the same bright colored shirt on and things. So I'll come to you with some needs, John, shirts, bags, gloves, the grabbers. So we'll put together a list of things we need to do to replenish.
Do you think we ought to do a new shirt this year, like a new design or something? We're gonna stick to the old one.
I mean, we'll have to take a look at it. I have no talent whenever it comes to that. Maybe somebody does.
I have a few designs.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that. When should,
You've got a hand raised.
oh, yes, Abby.
Can I ask a question? On the town calendar, you have the cleanup listed, I believe, as the 12th of April.
That's right. I just was missing a date. Yeah.
26 is the rain date.
The 26th is the rain date. Okay, because I was planning on, based around those two dates, we're gonna have the Town of McCandless Easter egg hunt probably on the 19th of April, which is that Saturday, right before Easter. Easter is April 20th this year. So I just wanted to squeeze that event in between the roadside cleanup, and I'm happy to help facilitate any sort of advertising or volunteer recruitment that you might need, since this is technically like a town event.
Wonderful. So that's the next one. So what can we do? How does advertising begin? Who do we use? When do we go to the North Allegheny, the weekly? When do we go to the Trib, which I think that is a Trib? How do we do this?
I mean, I'd say that we go to the Trib probably about 6 weeks in advance to make sure there's enough lead time. But we can start doing soft advertising by the end of this month, probably. We're saying, hey, here's the date.
And who do you usually get to?
And
Sorry, is it one particular volunteer group within like the high school that helps usually? How does that typically get populated with volunteers?
well, this is where we need your expertise, because I think we've been a bit of a ragtag bunch. Matt, who's above you on the screen, is works for the school, and I won't speak for him. Dawn has gone out to the scouting groups, but again, I think Hampton has fulfilled their number, which I think is about 150 every year, with mostly scouting groups. We're the opposite. We fill it with mostly, adult groups. I mean, we have kids, but we don't have nearly the kids that we used to have, Key Club and so forth. We don't nearly have that number that we used to. So we're trying to pull them back in. Again, I'll let Matt talk. But I think that I don't think we have a vision on how we do this. We just had luck last
How
time.
many volunteers do you typically get, or would you ideally get?
In the past, we would get about 30 for 2 different dates. One in the spring and one in the fall. We might get 30, 40. I think we got, at its heyday, I think we got 100 one time. Now, last year it was hard to count because there were so many scouts out there. And it was also a group that went out on Sunday. But I would say last year we probably had, we certainly had more than 100. I'm a bit of an exaggerator, but I think I could at least say we had more than 100.
Okay.
And it's,
You have that list and you know how to reach out to them.
yeah. So we had, just so you know, we had every EAC member, we had every council member, we had no municipal staff, which I've been given the every indication by John that we will have municipal staff this time. We had just a lot of effort in bringing in volunteers. We now have from Community Day and from Winterfest, mostly Community Day, we have another list of maybe 40 volunteer names that we can reach out to. So we do have a list on our SharePoint site of volunteers that we can send emails out. So we could send that out. And then also at Winterfest, as you know, we had a QR code where you can hit it and sign up, and that QR code exists for our sign up. Nobody really
Right.
did it, but
Okay.
we've got some semblance of thoughts.
Hmm.
What are
Okay.
your thoughts?
I mean, it sounds like a good resource of different people. It's just now getting the word out to those people about the date and the expectation and um, getting them all there. And I'd be happy to help you do that.
Yeah, was that me or was that somebody else?
I didn't see it on time.
Okay, okay, so, so again, I think it was a lot of really pushing people and really getting the word out, and I think we can even do a better job this year with advertising, so that's why I'm interested to see, coupled with what John does, are there any additional advertising opportunities that you can come up with, or volunteer networking? I know, again, that's reaching down further into our agenda, but how
Mhm.
can we reach into your volunteer network in your world to pull more people in?
Yeah, John and I can certainly put our heads together on different ways to advertise. And I will share with you, the resources I have or the contacts that I have as far as volunteers go. So yeah, we'll make it happen.
Okay, and then also we partnered with Barrel Subaru last year, and they offered an e-recycling event and a Kona ice truck
Oh,
for
okay.
participants. So we can do that again. We can reach out, and actually, putting your name on it makes it sound a little bit more official from the standpoint of McCandless backing this, and working with Barrel as opposed to just the EAC, which he may
Right.
or may not understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, for NA, there was a couple of people last year from Interact Club who volunteered for NA, there was a couple of people from Interact Club who volunteered for the Easter egg hunt, but the 19th is kind of an iffy date because it's in the middle of NA's spring break, so a lot of people are out that weekend.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
And Matt, can you, Debbie, were you speaking?
I just said thank you for that feedback. I hadn't considered about NA's spring break being during that time. Maybe, losing out on a couple volunteers from that.
Okay.
I have a version of the school calendar for 2025, so maybe I could send that out and see, because there's like some events like homecoming and stuff, and it might not be good to, put any events on those days.
That'd be great if you do that, and then we can load it on our SharePoint and everybody can see it.
Mhm.
That's great. Matt, can you speak to student volunteer opportunities?
Sure. So basically, I try to reach out to a lot of different clubs and a lot of the sponsors of the clubs every year, and the people that we have had consistent responses from are the Interact Club and National Honor Society. Those are the two that I consistently get in touch with and have provided volunteers for us so far. So I know, Abby, we've discussed that for like community day and events like that are sponsored by the township, we're going to move forward with volunteers kind of organizing through you so that it's all going through one particular place. For this, we should definitely pull and make sure we're not reaching out to the same contacts. But I'll reach out to you and let you share with you the names that I have, and we can just make sure that we're not doubling our efforts.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, and if everybody could circle up on their calendar, the April 12th date, and Nick, if you could start to, when appropriate, start to float that out to your council meetings. Very good, thank you.
I will get them
So,
right.
I mean, again, our contact groups seem to be the email list, council, staff, EAC, going through the McMail, we'll start to put out the advertisement, the pre-advertising, again, ultimately the signs, in the community. So Heritage Center, Canlis Crossing, that type of thing. And then The scouts, I think, is a great resource that we need to, I mean, we can ask Dawn to do it again, but I think that we're also trying to wean Dawn away from this. So we'll have to figure out, how we get on the scouts calendar or how we contact scouts or,
I can start reaching out with my scouting background.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love that. That is great.
I was thinking about doing that anyways, or just in general.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff,
Yep.
can we, is it possible for somebody to put together like a flyer that can go up in those places and we can send out to the schools that can go up in various, I know that there are still bulletin boards in schools, and some places out there that maybe we can just get the word out that way, kind of paper the town a little bit. I mean, I hate using paper, but just, maybe 20 of them, 25 of them, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any talent in that area, but
Either I or Abby. do.
okay, that's very good. Okay, that's what I'm looking. And certainly Northland Library, important part of our community.
How about La Roche?
La Roche,
Yeah, did they have
Yeah.
any organizations that?
yes, La Roche, that's a good point. And also, I was told by Lynn Atman, there was a contact at community college, who also in our community, that might be able to pull together some students.
And I might be able to, it'd be a little bit further away, but some of the colleges down in Pittsburgh, connections through my service fraternity. If I reach out and say, hey, I'm alumni, do you need, would you be interested in doing service projects? I could maybe pull somebody from like Pitt or something like that. So
Okay,
might be worth reaching out anyways.
great. Good.
And another
Matt.
one to add is potentially churches as well.
Okay. Any other questions about our roadside cleanup? Okay, next one is Rain Garden. Joanna.
All right, so after our meeting last month, I met with Arch out at the Rain Garden right before Christmas. So hilariously, I was dressed as a Christmas tree meeting an arborist. So that was fun. I kept the puns at a minimum. But it was very, very informative about, from his point of view, what needed to be done and the level of work, just for like the level of invasives and that kind of thing. I'll go over some of the like top line items. There are 4 trees that probably need to be cut away from the parking lot. That's the biggest thing. If it's over a sidewalk or over a parking lot, it's something that could cause danger to a car, to a person if they're walking underneath or something like that. So there are 1 tulip poplar, 2 black cherries, and then 1 linden tree that are along the parking lot there. I don't know for the town, like who handles cutting trees in that kind of area.
We would probably reach out to the public works. And
That's what I was
either they would
thinking.
do it or they would subcontract it out probably.
Right, and Arch said he would like help point out like which areas and like
Mhm.
exactly how to cut those to make sure that they were healthy. And then with the invasives on that same, there's a tulip poplar that has one of those big grapevines on it. And what that does over time, it pulls down on the tree and it makes it more likely to fall or topple because it's adding that extra weight and tension on the tree. So that needs to be cut and dealt with as well, just to keep that tree, because that's probably one of the most visible trees for the whole area. It's right by the sidewalk as you're going over the bridge, and it, tulip trees are big and they have, I don't know, such unique leaves and everything. Like
Mhm.
you want to make sure that one stays healthy. So we need to make sure to cut the grapevines, but there's all kinds of other stuff with bittersweet, privet bushes. There's a white mulberry tree. There's of course all the Japanese knotweed everywhere,
Mhm.
which that's a whole, going through that eventually, but I have more work I'm going to do trying to figure out what that is going to look like. And then he was kind of pointing out other things down around Devlin Park Trail, taking notes on. But his thoughts were, as long as the tree fall, like the branches or whatever, whichever way the tree would go, as long as it's within the area of the rain garden, that's fine because that's part of the ecosystem. That's where, you know, little salamanders can come out of the creek and they can have a home. But the big thing we need to watch for are the ones that could fall down towards the parking lot. But he agreed with me, like looking at the level of invasives, especially the Japanese knotweed, it's a lot of work to move forward and get everything cleared out to get it back to where it was when everything went in back in 2010. So it's kind of where we are, and we talked about like targeted applications of Roundup type stuff, or if there's other, what the best things to do. But I'm still working through that, as I said. So that's why I have to that meeting, and then shortly, was that before or after? Then I went to the town council meeting for fun. And I happened to watch Abby's presentation. And as I'm sitting there at the town council meeting, I saw up there that she had for her goals for 2025 to have rain garden workshops. And I got super excited, and I met up with her after the meeting and kind of excitedly told her some of my ideas. And so that's part of the reason she's here tonight is it was just kind of easier for us to find time this way versus trying to make my schedule line up with her schedule when I'm trying to treat kids for my real job versus, you know, her being here during the day. So Abby, thank you for coming tonight. But I'm excited to hear kind of what your dreams are for Rain Garden Workshop, where you'd like to see it headed, and yeah, we can collaborate from there.
So I think it was probably 2022. We did a rain garden workshop. Don Miller led it over at the Heritage Center at that catch basin right behind the Heritage Center along Offman Lane. And we really she spent a lot of time digging out all of the overgrown grasses and weeds and stuff that had grown up in that area. So it looks a lot better than it did 5 years ago, but I agree with you. There's a long way to go to make it look how it did when it was put in originally. But I think it's important to educate people on why the plants are there, how they can help, you know, with water drainage, and also how they can implement the same sort of system in their own yards. So I don't know if Joanna, you are, you know, versed enough to, you know, tell people like you should plant this for that purpose. But I'd love to have some sort of educational component and sort of a cleanup where, you know, we maybe tackle one section of it and pull out whatever is invasive in that area, and teach people along the way that like, this is a good plant, this is a bad plant.
Okay.
Is there anybody have expertise, Tree Pittsburgh, or anybody we could pull in to have somebody come and talk to our group?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, there's all kind of organizations that.
Tons of different kinds of organizations that we could look at in the area.
I mean, I think
And it's not that I
cooperative
don't
thing-
have some level of knowledge in this area. It's not, I would not call myself an expert. I'm more of a hobbyist, but Dawn and I are at similar levels when it comes to like our knowledge of invasives and that kind of thing. Pulling in somebody from the area, Audubon Society is the one who originally helped out with forming the rain garden back in 2010. And I've already been in contact with somebody there. Just he and I started chatting back and forth when I was getting the Plant This Not That pamphlet, and then we just started chatting. Also the Nature Center, the Tommy Nature Center, they might have some knowledge. And there's also like a rain garden group within the area. And of course, there's always FIPS.
And you've also got the master gardeners.
Master gardeners, yes, they have the
Good
master
point.
gardeners. I mean,
point.
there's different organizations in the area like Wild Ones that does native plants, and there's a lot of different groups. So
Okay.
we can definitely come up with something like that. And I like the idea of having people kind of learn about it, and then some hands-on work in there, like starting a collective knowledge of how to do it and kind of working towards a group of people who have the knowledge to work in there. Because that's kind of my concern about the area is how do we continue to maintain it and make sure that it's maintained
Mhm.
over time? Because how it got this way is that it was someone put it in, but then when it's just one person with a shovel who's supposed to be taking, or not even assigned to take care of it, like that's too much for one person,
Mhm.
and that's not exactly their role. It needs to be like the role of people who have that expertise.
Mhm.
So it's kind of how can we pass down that knowledge and find people who want to fill those roles?
Yeah, that was sort of exactly my thought, that, you know, it would be a two-pronged educational and action to help restore that area. So we can talk about, you know, the people that we want to pull in for this, the experts, and the time of year, whether it's better to do this in the spring or in the fall, or even in the summer, based on, you know, all of your schedules and then the schedules of the people that we collaborate with. So, but I like this idea.
Okay, and will you eventually send an email to, I mean, if you send it now, it might just get forgotten, but send an email to John and me or whatever saying, you know, with regard to the rainforest, rain garden, you know, can we somehow have these 4 trees removed and blah, 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 then you can get it before DPW.
Yeah.
Okay,
Trees you probably want to do more at this time of the year
Mhm.
while they're dormant.
okay. Much like my tip said last week, right?
Mhm.
Think I would know that. Okay, any other questions about rain garden? Okay, community outreach, catch basin update. I'm don't know if you know, if there's anything to really update because of the weather at this point. I'll certainly leave room to do that. I did request, I did send an email requesting the
Oh, yeah, I need to.
paved street list for 2023 and 2024, which I would then load onto the SharePoint. James, anything to add there?
Not really. For NA Interact, if anyone's interested, I'm like I have a bunch of like decals I'm just distributing to anybody who's interested, but I think overall because of the weather and because of winter break and stuff, everyone's like either on vacation or the weather's bad.
Mhm.
So there's not really much we can do.
Yeah, there's not much. Anything to add to that, Matt? I wouldn't think so, but okay, thank you. The other community outreach is speaker series, but I'd really like to sort of fold that into something else here in a minute because I have some other thoughts on how that, you know, who we should maybe pursue or what subject we should pursue based on some other conversations we have tonight. So, you know, something regarding tree or something, or, you know, so just, you know, let's not, you know, yeah, or that. Right. Okay, on to open initiatives. The first one I put up here is the ordinance discussion, and this is based on Arch's conversation with us last week regarding preservation of trees. Nick, are you up to speed on this? Do you know what I'm speaking about? Just
I
yes or
do.
no?
Because of what you just sent me before this, so yes.
Well, no, that's actually Bernie's presentation, but
Then
maybe Bernie, maybe you want to articulate this. I mean, just Arch's.
Yeah, so Arch, he talked about the preservation of historic trees. He believes there's about 8 in the community. He told us a pretty sad story about a very old tree that, you know, he tried to save and did not successfully save it. So he was actually looking for, could we work to protect these 6 to 8 trees that are of a certain age left in our community? And he was developing or had model ordinance language for that. So it wasn't trying to do anything related to, protecting trees, full stop. It was just related to these ones that were of a certain age and how you might address an ordinance. Likely these are on private land. And so, it's kind of like designating a historic structure, of a building that somebody owns, that they may not be thrilled with that, but, what it means is then you're gonna have to treat it with preservation techniques as opposed to destroying it.
The trees that he was talking about are all from colonial times, like 1700s, big old white oaks. And my impression was he wasn't exactly positive where the trees were located. He just knew from other data that they existed.
Yeah, because we never got a list. He thought that he could provide a list, but we didn't. I didn't get a list.
Well, I know the county used to have a list of trees that were over 200 and 250 years old. I remember, I actually worked with Penn State Extension 20 years ago. So anyway, but I remember back in that time, there was the county maintained a list of how many trees were over a couple of 100 years old, and they would kind of track them. So I think the county somewhere, there used to be,
I was
John?
planning on contacting him about this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just waited until January when things calmed down a little bit.
So,
Matt has his hand raised already.
So there is a book available that he mentioned. You can get it out of Northland Library, and it lists the bicentennial trees of Allegheny County, including the ones in McCandless. I got it out a couple weeks ago. I was just looking through it. I did not document any of this. I didn't realize we didn't have that information, but you can get it out of Northland Library very easily.
What's it titled?
I believe it was bicentennial trees, but let me look it up real quickly here and I can tell you.
Or just email me. You can email me.
So I believe the conversation was last month, that we want to consider if we want to go to council with an ordinance to preserve these trees. And so we were given two examples, one Swickley and one Bradford Woods. And I looked at their ordinances, and maybe you did too. And Swickley just has a shade tree commission, but there's no private property restrictions in any of these ordinances. I mean, and speaking to John, the township manager, I mean, he didn't have any Edgeworth or any place that he had ever been employed, and thought it would be extremely hard to enforce.
We looked at this process of shade tree and all of that, and a number of years ago, and we decided that for McCandless, it didn't make sense to try to go that way, because most everything is private land ownership. With these bicentennial trees and things like that, I'm not sure that you really need an ordinance, but it would be nice to recognize the trees
yes,
and with landowner approval,
Right.
kind of thing.
yeah.
But that's really where my leanings are with that.
Okay, and if nobody's gonna put their hand up, I'll speak, but please feel free to. Oh, yes, yes, Abby. Sorry.
Just a reminder that the America's bicentennial, not bicentennial, 250th anniversary is in 2026. So maybe in 2026, you make a list of those, 200-year-old trees and say, these trees in McCandless are as old as the United States. That could be kind of cool.
And this is what I was thinking, thanks, Matt. That maybe what we do is we make this a matter of pride, and we recognize these people might not even know they're even on their property. And we make it, maybe not our first speaker series, but, maybe at some point we do a walking tour, or we get somebody to discuss them, or we show them off and make so these people don't want to, just get rid of them because of the leaf problem.
Yeah.
Let me check out where they are and we can go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, did you have your hand up?
I had my hand up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that I was talking to my teacher today, actually, and she lives in Baldwin somewhere. And there's like 4 historical trees that were gonna be cut down for a road. And what they did is that they ended up doing like a speaker series on the trees, and then in the end, the trees weren't cut down because they raised more like public, knowledge about the trees. So I just thought that was interesting.
We have to figure out where they are and see what, how to run from there.
Yeah, they did like something where they brought people to the trees and then talked about the history of all the trees, and then just tried to shed the trees off as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. But again, this is the Democratic committee, so I don't know that we have enough information right now to make an opinion about, do we want to, go to council with an ordinance request until we know where those trees are. And yeah, we agree with that. Okay. Okay. Then, so the next one is tree program project or subcommittee. And Bernie has put together a presentation. I don't want to go to the end of the movie, but it seems to me that a subcommittee is overkill, and making it a project that seems perfectly great for this committee, great for McCandless. And I don't see any issue why we wouldn't pursue this, but I'm going to give you the floor and also let you go through that presentation for, I would say, probably for Nick. Okay. And for the group.
You wanna share, John? I promise 10 seconds a slide.
Well, it's
You
no
don't wanna
confidential.
stay till 11, right? How are we doing on time?
Hold on, let me share it screen here.
So, while John's pulling that up, I'll just say that, again, I was appointed last February. And when I was asked what I would do as a member of this committee, I said my interest was in developing a program related to trees and the tree canopy in McCandless. So I really spent the last year doing research and discovery regarding that. And I felt like the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. And so it's just such a huge issue. It just impacts everything. And so, I mean, just like we just talked about the old trees, the ordinances, and you can go in so many directions with this. But what I've tried to do is kind of take the big thing, distill it down to some steps we can take and go from there. So next slide. So actually, like, I can't read it either. So again, after months of research, looking global, national, statewide, countywide, regionally, the township, and not even collecting, I would say, a small percentage of what's out there. Because for every tree group I found 100 more that, I hadn't talked to. So it's just incredible how many organizations are involved in trees, and then how trees impact and affect an ecosystem truly globally. So kind of jump to the bottom on findings, which is after looking at best practices, case studies, talking with a bunch of folks. I think what we want to do today is essentially say, so what are the findings, the efforts and the programs that we can use for McCandless? So next slide. So what I had looked at was, look at McCandless and on just the Google map and take a look at, how much of it is already green. And it's a significant portion of McCandless is green thanks to the park. And if you look below the park, there's this tiny little square, a little bit, south of it, and that's actually the Memorial Cemetery. And again, I've spoken with them. So I've spoken with the park, and I've spoken with the Memorial Cemetery, which are the two largest green spaces we have. And my original thought was, that's where we should start, is putting the trees back in. The cemetery, I drive by it pretty much every day, and they have lost significant old growth trees through storms. Just in the last decade, they have lost so many of their trees. So they have interest in kind of a program to kind of re-tree, their area as well. And North Park already has robust programs to put trees.
Mhm.
And so, especially the portion that is in McCandless. So when you look at the rest, you are looking at the residential and business areas. And I think it's important to not ignore those and to also examine those. So next one up. Because the problem statement that we discovered, was that we lost from 2015 to 2020, 226 acres of our tree canopy. And this year in 2025, there will be a new assessment from 2020 to 2025 of the number of trees in our tree canopy that we've lost. And we lose them to development, to old growth, to storms, to a multitude of reasons. I think we calculated that was about 36,000 trees that we would have lost from 2015 to 2020, just in McCandless. So if those numbers hold true, we'll probably be somewhere about 70,000 that we would have lost then. And that's if we're lucky and that it had not accelerated the losses. And of course, much of it was, forested areas, and those forested areas were now developed, and it's going to be impossible to reforest certain areas. But I think part of that approach of, but what can we look at and how can we approach it? That's been where I think a lot of the work I've done is kept thinking, sure, we'll just go into green spaces and looking at reforestation. And then Ken reminds me that the deer are everywhere and it's got to be part of a broader ecosystem approach as well. So next slide. So I think, again, so that's what I just said, parks and passive space, municipal spaces are relatively easy to replant. However, neighborhood and homeowner programs are where the real work needs to be in the canopy loss. And similarly, where our education, organized programs, and sponsored programs, we can look at not just passive and municipal owned, publicly owned spaces, but really, I think the way we best serve our residents is to take a look at programs in the neighborhoods. So next slide. So this list came from both the interview I did with Danielle Crumrine, the executive director of Tree Pittsburgh. She and I had brainstormed a whole series of programs, and this is just the master list of things that we talked about that we could do. And I think the challenge we had is, ultimately, right, you could end in 10 years with all these programs fully engaged and operational. But that question of where do we start? So if we go to the next slide. So part of what I'm proposing is that we start with a big bodacious goal for McCandless, and we do a 50,000 tree canopy challenge. And so I originally wanted this over 5 years, and it is feasible to do it in 5 years, but I have been encouraged by those who do this work to look to make it 10 years. And our goal would be to have a healthy and restored tree canopy for McCandless Township. And we would look over the 10-year period at putting at least 50,000 trees into the township, into all of our spaces in the 16 square miles, of the township, to develop education programs to really our citizenry on about why they're so important and why we all need to care, and then motivate to action everybody, and then to gain approval with the town leadership, to proceed to launch this challenge. So if we go to the next one, you know, the why is because this is infrastructure. We often talk about, you know, roads, bridges, you know, the gray and black infrastructure, but this green infrastructure is really critical for the economy, you know, for the human health and species health, as well as clean air and water. And the next slide, for those who really don't know the benefits of trees, I
Yeah.
went ahead and listed them, right? Because I mean, to me, it's the summary of, you know, the economy, human, you know, equity, the environment. I mean, there's all these reasons why trees matter and why they're good for us. I mean, our air quality, I think, is one of the biggest issues. You know, we in Pittsburgh have some of the worst air quality. So I think taking a look at how we can even improve our air quality is something we could look to do. And I know stormwater is an issue, and we have flood areas in the township, and I think we can equate and work on areas in the floodplains that we have and how to mitigate and how to plant and teach residents how to do that for hillside stabilization and stormwater mitigation. So next slide. So where we thought we could start is that Tree Pittsburgh would sponsor a program to commence in spring and fall planting cycles. We would start with a tree tenders training as early as, say, a few months from now, within a few months, you know, before, let's say before April. And the reason we would want to do that is, and we could host it here in McCandless. We could have 40 plus participants. Would need to identify a location based on kind of the specs they're looking for, but they would send their training team here to train McCandless residents who we could recruit to sign up. We can offer it for free. We could charge. I mean, however we want to structure that, you know, is what they're open for. And then ideally, once we do the tree tenders program, they would do a tree adoption event here in both the spring and fall. They would center it on McCandless Township geography, and we could operate it with them. And ideally, they want to connect that to the tree tenders. And I know I've been thinking about, you know, could we get student groups involved in helping with the you know, the tree adoption event and assisting people with potentially getting them planted. Yeah, because I think that's part of the issue. They also said that anybody from McCandless, they have a list of who's already gotten trees from them in the past, and they would offer more trees to former adoptees to just try to get a higher concentration of trees into the township. So that's what we're talking about as just a way to get started in 2025. Simple programs, 2 of them to get us off the gate. So the next up then, you know, she also suggested that we could start looking for funding specifically for McCandless. You know, she's got funds right now for the programs that I just described. But we could start looking at our own applications, and if McCandless wants to apply, say for DCNR, Tree Vitalize, and some other programs, we can do that. Or they are happy to serve as a fiscal conduit for us as well. So again, she could act as a guide on where's the funding for trees, and then help and guide us into how we could get funding, you know, for kind of this decade-long idea. And then ideally, she also said they have an agreement with Pine Township where they will, through their own nursery, sell at deep discounts residents, trees for residents, as long as the township manages that sale. So $20 to $30 a tree, for as an example, as opposed to, you know, paying more for it elsewhere. So anyway, so those are kind of things that we talked about just as a way to get started. So moving forward, again, looking for approval from EAC and request the town council and the township staff on, you know, working on the development of this And I definitely have kind of a 10-year timeline as to what the numbers break down, what would have to do in a year. You know, kind of how we get started in 2025, and then how we can ramp up as we get better over time and kind of build an army of people who are interested in seeing the canopy restored. So thanks for listening and vote for trees.
Great. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And what I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing that there doesn't seem to be any financial resources needed from McCandless at this point, correct?
Yeah, but with, you know, the ability to also apply for funding. So at this point, you know, Danielle with Tree Pittsburgh, she's willing to take her existing programs and funding and bring them to McCandless and work with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what we talked about is then this year, we discussed some applications that we could apply for that would help fund us for 2026 through DCNR, the Western PA Conservancy. That's who's actually getting the Tree Vitalized funding now. So we can apply with them in May. So there's a few, but again, she's willing to guide us on, you know, how to get those applications in, and I'm more than willing to fill those out and work with the staff or whomever needs to.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens procedurally. I mean, if we wanted, so first of all, Nick, obviously, this is going to be, it's just an additional project that the EAC would undertake, and it would need council approval. And so there is a formality of a form that needs to be filled out, and John, you will help us.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we can even make sure if we still need the form or not, because, right, in a lot of ways, that was like a couple councils ago who really wanted that exact form.
okay.
We could probably do something different to like a separate memo or whatnot, or just for this presentation as far as that. I don't know if you feel about that, Nick.
Sounds like a plan to me. I think this is a good start here.
Okay, so questions from the committee, please.
Just a comment, for a few years, we kept track of how many trees people planted, and 3 years in a row, I had the most trees planted in the township, and I was only planting like a half dozen trees.
Yeah,
Well, so how to keep count is gonna be a challenge,
Mhm.
and, you know, what I, again, am hoping to be able to do is on our website in McCandless, you know, have a place where people can do it. And by the way, Ken, I remember when the township was keeping track, which is why I haven't, you know, proposed something about that. But I was planting trees, and again, you know, who to tell how many I planted and where, you know, was ambiguous to me. So I agree with you. I think under the banner of the challenge, like, I feel like we have to be really clear about how to, you know, how to log your trees in. And what Danielle had shared with me, you know, if it were up to just putting them in parks and paying for them, we probably couldn't hit the goal. But if you have, say, 8,000 households in McCandless and everybody just planted one tree a year, like, you know, we would hit there, right?
mhm.
So part of it is like rallying the community to, you know, just kind of, yeah.
Are there any thoughts about, so I'm hearing like places in municipal land and then the cemetery and then people's neighborhood, but I'm also thinking there's other pieces of land that belong to other types of people. So say there's a business that wants
Yeah.
more trees. And I can think of some places where they have a lot of like green space and they
Yeah.
took out a bunch of trees too. The other thing that comes to mind is like a community association sometimes has plots of land, I know mine does,
Yeah.
that could benefit from additional trees on
Yes,
that,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
they could also acquire those
Mhm.
trees. So.
Yeah, so to your point, like the conversation, you know, where you're good at your community organization and I
Mhm.
agree, Brooke, right? So could we rally them to compete with each other? I mean,
know.
it's a thought, but again, I don't see doing that in 25, but I see like, how do we ramp up the community to get excited,
Mhm.
like this matters and why?
Messaging is
And that
always our
is
challenge.
all, yeah, so the messaging and the education about why do we care? And then making sure the right trees get put in place
Mhm.
and you're right. I mean, all the, all the spaces of where we could potentially put 50,000 trees
Right.
safely. And I do think that, that's such an important consideration. So, but I do think the education, the advocacy, doing a
Mhm.
lot of, to your point, maybe is where you were leaving this is speaker series on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's.
I mean, I would almost love to do, monthly event on trees.
Mhm.
Not necessarily all in 25, but by 26, kind of have it amped up to where, we're doing a lot with the umbrella, the canopy of a tree.
Mhm.
And when you get into some of that too, don't forget about best speeds and some of the commercial people.
Yes.
You want them on your side, and
Yes.
so you need to bring them in too.
Thanks for saying that. I mean, I think even getting business sponsorship, and getting the businesses involved too. So to your point about, so I had interviewed some of the folks with the parking lots, McCandless Crossing is nothing but a heat island, right?
Mhm.
And I think part of the challenge that what I've learned is, there are trees in that heat island, but, they're burning up because there's not enough green space for them. But it would be very expensive to take them out. So, so again, I've talked to the folks who own the land, manage it, or attend to it. But I do think those are huge opportunities, these heat island areas we have, and that's typically what a shade tree commission would do, is kind of look at that, but I see it as, it's a voluntary act, right? Could we engage businesses to get more involved in why there are parking lots, nobody wants to park in them, right? So, anyway, or to your point, getting just businesses involved in underwriting it. So the events we do, these tree planting events, I would really like to make them parties.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
getting a lot of business support and even elected officials, Nick, if you want to show up and.
So we, Pie Trainer in North Park, there's this Devil's Elbow, it's on the right-hand side. And we did tree, Trails Pittsburgh did a huge mountain bike ride. So I was part of this mountain bike ride. We came around one corner, there had to be 200 trees planted. I don't know who did that.
Yeah, I
It,
think Ken knows.
Yeah, they're using those 5-foot tubes, and
that's right.
you're gonna find that is totally futile, because it's one very hard environment for the tree to grow. And when they do finally get out of that 5-foot tube, and they haven't ever been exposed to any weather and wind, they break off. American Chestnut Foundation, we use those trying to plant wild trees, and we abandon that is less than useful. You're just wasting your time with that.
Mhm.
And
But
I've
somebody
talked-
planted
I've
200
talked-
trees though. I mean, some,
Yeah.
there's people out there that do this.
Well, and so
There's hundreds of trees planted in North Park that have wire around them. Those
Right.
trees will do fine.
I've seen
Those
those.
5-foot plastic tubes will come to nothing.
Okay.
So Danielle has suggested, these adopt a tree activities.
Mhm.
The way they do that is people sign up for the trees. They say what is available and people can sign up and then come pick them up. And she did say for Arbor Day this year, it's one of their usual days that they do these tree adoptions, which is April 25th, which is a Friday.
Yeah.
But she had suggested that we could do possibly something as the tree planting for the McCandless, like a ceremonial kickoff of the activity
Mhm.
on Arbor Day. And that, we could do a ceremonial planting that day and maybe tie it in with the tree adoption that day. But she said it would be required that we already had completed our tree tenders courses so that they don't want trees adopted in the communities without having tree tenders in the community.
Northern Area Environmental Council used to do a tree sale every spring. And they're basically phasing out, so to speak. But we may be able to get like their membership list and stuff like that to go from, but that can give you some.
Yes. Yeah, that would be great. And I think the tree sale, I mean, these are like free trees. And I think they limit them to 3 per household. but even if we could get, you know, a gaggle
Mhm.
of residents who are interested in doing this, and ideally, again, have the tree tenders and maybe even some crews recruited to help go plant, you know, 4 people to help them with siting and, you know, the rest of it. So it really would be, you know, a spring and a fall event, and then
Yeah.
the tree tenders training.
Much like the litter. Or rain garden or wherever we're,
We have a hand up.
yes.
Bernie, also in 2026, McCandless will be celebrating its 175th anniversary. I would love for the EAC to have maybe some initiative to plant 175 trees during like a certain period of time. Whether that's through the whole year or you think you can do that a couple times in a year, that'd be great. But keep that in mind as well, that in 2026, we'll be celebrating 175. And we actually have a staff planning meeting tomorrow about, you know, my thoughts for programming for that year, but I would love to have some EAC influenced programs for that campaign as well.
I mean, I would love to do that in each of the like neighborhood communities.
Yeah, each ward, you could have like a
communities
competition.
There are
See
in
who could get
Graybrook,
to
like
175.
neighborhood groups.
Okay.
I mean, we could do 175 in each neighborhood. That would be phenomenal as a goal.
Any other questions? Well, so 2 things. One is, again, Nick, the formality of taking this to council, thumbs up on that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So we'll move on that. We'll move on this sheet. And then, I had a question for Abby and I can't think what it was. It was certainly something regarding the, 40 volunteers or something. Again, I think that we're always hoping to tap into some network of volunteers throughout the community, and however you can help us with that.
Well, to me, that is, how do we recruit people who are interested in
Right,
being
that's
tree
it.
tenders, right? And it's 40 plus, so I
Yeah.
mean, the minimum for a class is 40 to host it in McCandless. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to see more people show up who want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, then is your question that Abby would maintain the list?
No, just no, I don't think so. I mean, I think that Abby hopefully is a resource that would allow us to find people for the rain gardens or find people for litter. I mean, there's 29,000 people in McCandless. There's got to be 40 interested in trees, and there's got to be 100 interested in litter, and there has to be, and there has to be 15 interested in rain gardens. And hopefully Abby taps into some type of network of people that have interest in volunteering in McCandless, but not being part of an official committee.
For the tree tender class to be held here, do they all have to be residents, or could they just be from the area coming to our central location for this class?
So I would love if they were McCandless
Yeah.
first, right? So, I guess it depends how we want to do it, but we are trying to develop the McCandless citizenry talent base.
Mhm.
And so, but I agree with you, if somebody's, like I'm close to Hampton, right? So every now and then I slide into their stuff, but I hear you.
Yeah, especially if you're advertising for the class like through the library or something, you might get people who aren't residents specifically of McCandless who are
I
interested.
think it's a matter of, right now, we're talking about one program, but if there's a huge demand, why not do several? I mean, that's where I'd want to approach it. So, yeah, I would love to see huge demand.
Right. Okay, so we're good. We're moving on this.
Sure.
Wonderful. And that'll go into it'll go into the project updates. And if the only update next month is that we've submitted the paperwork, but every month you'll be on the agenda for that.
Okay.
Wonderful. Next on open, any other questions? Next on open initiatives, let's just skip down. Let's go to D, volunteer network, because we've been sort of weaving that into every conversation we're having. Anything additional to say about that, Abby? But does a volunteer network exist? Are we just sort of pie in the sky with this, or how are we thinking of this?
I mean, to this point, community events that I've done in the past 6 months have all been sort of piecemeal with, like the connections that Matt had at, National Honor Society and Interact. There's a couple groups at NAI actually that, showed up for Winterfest hours, needing hours. So I think they're out there. I think it's a matter of, being consistent with offerings for them. And also, doing things during the school year is a lot easier than doing things, the first weekend in September when, they're right back to school and they're not even maybe a part of these clubs yet. So keep that in mind as well, that like, if you, plan to do something in the summertime, that you might have a different group of volunteers than you would during the school year. But yeah, I mean, I've made connections. I'm glad to help you format, fill in the blanks for volunteer slots. But I think it'll be something that we'll have to grow as well. You want those consistent volunteers to call and say, hey, what do you guys have going on, in the next 6 months that I can help with. So it's something we can certainly build together.
And I think of it as like a database that exists. And so when we're going to do X, Y, or Z, we say, you showed interest in this activity. We are meeting on July 21st to do this activity, that type of thing. So, eventually it'd be nice to have a shared database of volunteers in McCandless.
Yeah.
Abby, have you thought of having like a bulletin board of volunteer opportunities for people that, people that are looking for something to do would see that they can work in the rain garden or whatever?
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea. Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
We have a volunteer application. Do you have a volunteer application for the EAC page?
Well, I proposed one, but I don't think we have.
There's not one specifically on the EAC page, but on the McCandless website, there's a general volunteer form.
Okay.
And then through the different events, we do get people to sign up just on paper lists, or last time at Winterfest with the QR code.
Okay.
It was already explained a little bit.
John Bajerski and I just went through the Parks and Recreation page and sort of reformatted it a little bit. And we used an old form that was on there for the activities committee. So I can certainly add something, we can make it more general and put it in different places. So that way, if you do come to the website looking for information about the EAC, you might also see that, you don't have to necessarily join the committee, but there are other opportunities to get involved. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, wonderful. It'd be nice to just, go to the web page and see, are you interested in this, and this, and this, and this, join our group, join, sort of like the Facebook groups, but join. Okay, next, EAC mission and project managing. And the reason I was thinking about that is because we talked a lot last month about, and Mark was here, talked a lot about getting the message out on who we are, what we do, and certainly, as he said, so concisely, educate, act, and connect. EAC, educate, act, and connect, and that really stuck with me. And I was just wondering if maybe just sort of folding that down into February McMail tips. That maybe the February McMail tip is something that just tells people who we are, as opposed to going back and reaching and saying, I mean, if anybody has any other ideas, but do we fold these two things together? Thoughts?
Talking about volunteer recruitment.
No, not volunteer, getting off of that subject, just saying who the EAC is. So taking February, because we talked about winter pruning in January, we've talked about, different things, what are we going to talk about in February? I don't know if anybody has a subject that's top of mind, then certainly bring it up, but maybe it's Did you know the EAC, okay, the litter, the roadside cleanup is coming up, be ready for April. But also, did you know that we talked, we can't say specifically we're doing this or that, but, deer control and rain gardens, and we do this and we do that. This is who we are.
I would almost just suggest holding on something like that. We talked last time, it would be great to get some more of this information on the website. Because when you go there, it doesn't tell that we do these things yet. So once we have resources that the community can actually go and access, then there's huge value in telling them that we exist and this is what we do. But right now, if we say that and they go to our page, there's nothing for them to learn about at this moment.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem to make sense.
So let's do a backup then.
Yeah.
Do a little moon dance backup and go back to EAC mission and project messaging.
Yeah.
How do we get that information on there?
I'm happy to I can start working with each of you sort of individually, and then John, will you be the person to go to get things uploaded to our website? Okay, yeah, I'm happy to sort of leave that
Okay.
work. It'll go a little slow, but
Mhm.
it would be great to corral it. I imagine Mark might be able to assist me with some of this. too,
Yeah.
So we can work in tandem.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think that that's really important before you go say, hi,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, and then it's
We
just
wanna
like
be
it
proud
just
of
there.
what we
It's a
showcase.
gray matter then after that. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I forget where we are on the website, but that we're talking about the website of McCandless Township. Are we under government and then boards and committees and then?
Yes.
Okay.
You got to do a little, unfolding to get there, but it seems like we always have something on the front page that sort of tells people that we're out there. Like the EAC, I think gets recognized, and we're also the first committee on there too, which I think is not bad press. Like when you go up to the committee list, EAC is the first one on there. So, I don't think we're lost in the website. Okay, then we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's in the interest of time, why don't we go to the comprehensive parks plan, which Abby I think is here to discuss. And is that right?
If you want me to, I mean, we have our first committee meeting coming up. The steering committee, and then at a certain point, we'll be asking for input from some other folks as well. So I have nothing to report at this moment, but just letting you know that it's underway and we're excited to get it started.
Okay, great. So I then B, I did meet with John Schwend. Is it? I keep sort of. Am I saying his last name right? Okay, good. John Schwend, the new township manager. I did meet with him last month and just gave him a rundown of everything that we work on. Got his buy-in on the roadside cleanup. He gave us some ideas on how there was other successes in his other communities. Went down the whole list, everything that we had on the back of last month's agenda, went down the whole list, and just brought him up to date on everything that we were working on. At that point, he did talk about the comprehensive parks plan. At that point, he did invite me to be on that steering committee, or I'm not sure if I'm on a steering committee or if I'm just on some initial committee. But then there'll be other folds of our expertise to add to that committee. But he asked me to sit on that initially, and I accepted that. Any questions about that meeting? Next is Parks plan. We talked about that. E-waste tour is now officially January 24th.
I've sent everybody the address or not.
I don't think so, but
Okay, I'll forward it to everybody. It's it's out 22. I want to say it's not quite as far as New Alexandria, but
okay.
Yeah.
I'll pass Salem or whatever.
Yeah, it makes sense to carpool if we could.
Yeah, you and I'll go for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on that?
Yeah, he said should be an hour, just to tour. So, I mean, unless everybody's got to get back to work, I was thinking we could meet somewhere after and even invite them to join us for a bite somewhere, out that way.
Sounds great.
Yeah, depending on weather, of course. I mean, let's hope it's not horrible that day. But if it is, we could reschedule, I'm sure.
Okay.
Okay. So do we have a head count?
I will be there, but
I'm tentatively there unless it makes changes.
I'm gonna follow up and see if anyone internally wants to come. I'm gonna try to come. John said he was not going to come, but he is interested in talking to them about maybe doing a possible drop-off type event.
Yeah, he doesn't do the collection, but there are groups that do the collection and then bring it to them. They're just kind of the place to get to the. He's the largest recycler in 6 states of e-waste, so their major operation is in Penn State area. They've got, I think it's 100,000 square foot facility. The
geez.
one we're seeing is small, relative to that one.
okay, since we're gonna skip on the messaging thought, does anybody have any ideas about a February McMail tip?
So speaking of waste, I'm not sure if you've all seen, it is on the website, but effective last week, we can now recycle glass in our at-home recycling containers. With that, it does say it on the website, but when you click on the link to get the information about what is and is not allowed, that's still outdated. So it would be great if we could get that updated with the information that Republic shared when we went on that tour. They had a video that showed their facility, and they also had additional resources that they said they were going to be mailing to somebody. I do not remember.
Yeah, and
I
they
never saw this.
yeah, I never saw them either.
So
Never saw.
that would be worth following up, but then maybe for the McMail, we could talk about that, just let people know that that change was there, unless that's already in there in some other section.
Yeah, people are still unhappy about cardboard too. I guess not having a cardboard container.
There's always gonna be something, but the cardboard is definitely one of them, there's
I know.
one thing that we used to have is the basically you could do like 3 extra bags as a bulk item, and now they don't really consider that anymore because that's not one of their default settings. So we're trying to work with them on that too.
3 extra bags for leaves, you mean?
No, just in general, like 3 extra trash bags.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
So it's still a little complicated. We need to work with them probably a bit more to really iron things out finally. But it's also a tough time of year because a lot of people are trying to pay their bill annually because you get a discount for that. It's really clogging up their phones.
Well, could it just be something about waste management? What is currently, what you're working on, like, because I agree, it's kind of it just seems like it's something that you see a lot about.
That is
Matt?
Yeah, I was just gonna second that. I think that if we can do something not just about the recycling, but just clarifications in general, a lot of people seem very confused about what is a bulk item. Why can't I put out a bag of, I can't even request to put out extra bags of trash anymore. What am I supposed to do if I have extra bags of trash? Things like that. I think there seems to be a lot of confusion on like the McCandless Facebook groups and things like that.
Okay, so that's solid. I mean, maybe we could do like a FAQ, and even what we learned is that that even though it's a 1, it's not a good 1, and it's size, and it's really size as opposed to. So maybe we need clarification and 5 strong facts from waste management also on really what they're looking for. I mean, just to sort of like keep hammering it home.
We could see if they can provide just like a little guest piece on
Yeah.
the McMail, or just give us the top tips they want us to be able
Yeah. Yeah, but we're also having trouble them responding to us.
Yeah, so I can reach out probably tomorrow or Friday
Mm-hmm.
and just mention the idea of, some clarifications on this, just general recycling tips, what they're looking for.
Yeah. It doesn't cost them any money. It's not big and and bodacious, you know, word of the day. It's none of that. It's just good form. Good form.
And when you do reach out, if you could ask if they could share the resources that they provided to us when we were at the tour, that way you can throw them on the website, that would be really helpful.
If that video is available, that would be nice to, for people who maybe
Mhm.
click on from our website to go to waste management and watch the video.
Okay, everybody good on that? Still clicking away here. James, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you know, do you have anything you can report? Do you have anything you want to share with the group?
Yeah, I typed some things on my phone. I'll just pull it up real quick.
Mm-hmm. On your phone.
Yeah.
There's a shocker.
So NA Interact, we're doing like some activities that I think the AAC might find interesting. I just wanted to report some of those ones.
Mm-hmm. Little bit, raise your voice a little bit, please.
All right, sure. And then first we're doing sustainable winter bingo. It's just like bingo for school, like bingo during school. And it's just like we're promoting eco-friendly habits and sustainability awareness. We're also doing the February bird count, like the big backyard. bird count.
Yeah.
That could be a good nickname.
Yeah,
What did he say?
The February bird count.
like the backyard bird count that I think Audubon does. I'm not sure.
It was in the paper, and they did it the day after Christmas or that Saturday.
There's always one around Christmas.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, that's 3 days long, and I think maybe we could talk about it in an email or something. And then this is kind of unrelated, but we're also doing like a Shelter Box fundraising thing. Basically, Shelter Box is an organization that makes like eco-friendly products and tries to give them to like refugees around the world to help them with their situations. So maybe you could try to help also fundraise for Shelter Box. And then I talked with some students and I also like looked at the calendar for some dates that I think might be important for us to keep a note of. Maybe to not plan events during those dates.
Mhm.
So I was thinking like the end of May has a lot of AP tests. So that's usually not a very good date for like 2-3 weeks. And then the middle of January has a lot of midterms. So that would also be kind of a loaded date, a little bit of a busy date. And then during like the months of April and March, we're pretty open. There's not a lot of things. I think prom is during that date. So maybe we shouldn't schedule something during prom.
Mm-hmm.
But I think other than that, we're mainly good. And then I also forgot to mention for Interact, we're doing something called vlogging. It's just like roadside cleanup all by yourself, basically. So whenever you go jogging, you just pick up trash that you see along the way, and you just take a picture to prove that you actually did it. So I just thought those were some.
That's great because there is a, and I can't remember what it was, I look it up, but there's a contest and did you see it was in the Post Gazette or I guess the Post Gazette, there were pictures of people there were students who took pictures of trash in different areas across the state and they won awards and different things. We don't quite go to that level here, but this is a nice start.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we'd love to see some of those to make sure people are actually doing it, so it's just not just a thing.
Yeah, I can ask Miss Lombardi to send some over maybe.
Okay.
Because there's some students that have already done it, but like given the weather right now, there's not a lot. So.
Good. Any questions for James? Very good, James. Thank you.
Did he send me that? I didn't hear much.
I just said that there were some students that have already taken some pictures of themselves going like picking up trash. But it's like the middle of winter right now, so there's not a lot doing it now.
So,
Yeah, well, for catch basin and different things like that, I mean, we'll lean on you once the weather changes, but
Yeah.
let the snow be the snow. Okay, anything else for James? I see no hands. Next is report from town council.
I just
Go ahead,
wanted to
Trevor.
mention that we were gonna get the parks master plan under way, but we already mentioned that, so that's it.
to admit, I don't know what we're talking about with the master plan. Is there a description of it somewhere that could be shared? Is it on the site?
I don't know if there's a description of it. There's on the site is on McCandless's webpage, there is a RFP for a firm to contract to fulfill the grant. So there's a $90,000 grant. I'm not going to articulate this well. There's a $90,000 grant
It's a planning grant.
that we secured. But there is an RFP for work to fulfill the needs of that grant.
So right now, the planning committee is seeking an organization to conduct planning, master planning for all the parts.
That is correct.
No,
Okay.
the contract has already been
I
awarded.
don't know. Abby.
The contract has already been awarded to Patrick. That was done in the summer of last year. And then we were sort of waiting for the new town manager to be hired to start the process, but this has been in process for well over a year, I think at this point. The RFPs went out last spring and we're due in May. We had 5 consulting firms apply for this, and Patrick was the one that was awarded. Patrick did the town's comprehensive plan back in 2019. So they are familiar with the town and the town's needs. The information that came out of that comprehensive plan in 2019 is available on the website. And as we get into this study a little bit more, I'm sure we'll have more information on the website and dates where I think there's a couple stages where the public is consulted in this study. And then at the end, their findings will be shared publicly as well.
And what is I'm so sorry, I don't know enough about it. What's the goal is to have, because I'm wondering how the trees fit into Parks
Absolutely.
Master Plan.
Mhm.
What is the outcome anticipated with the master plan? What is it that everybody's seeking to have occur?
It varies on who you ask, but honestly, it's a master site development plan for the 5 town municipal parks. So it's specific to the 5 parks in McCandless. So yeah, certainly the trees and canopy issues and all of that kind of stuff.
And connectivity. I'm sorry, Abby. Connectivity between them. So
Yeah.
trail building, so certainly Wall Park trail building was an important part of that link. So, building that and then ultimately connecting to Potter Park. And I mean, Ken can articulate this better than I can, but it is, that's one of the goals.
Yeah, and also just
Example, the green
just
space
revealing what
map, which sits both on Parks and Rec and on EAC. Is that the crossover? Is green space? I guess that's what I'm curious about. Do you mean
Mhm.
parks in the sense of the 5 named parks?
Mhm.
Or is it 5 named parks and all potential available green space? Like, help me understand the scope of what they're doing.
Yeah, the green space will certainly be included in that. I think the overall, 30,000 foot view will be on the 5 parks and how they're currently used and how could they be better used by residents of McCandless. I think for a long time, we sort of rested on our laurels with North Park being right next door. But now we really see a concerted effort to make something special for our residents. And I'm sorry, that feedback is terrible. Yeah, so focus more on our 5 parks and how we can better serve the residents with the land, green spaces included that we already have.
green space inside the park or just green space in McCandless?
in McCandless.
Okay.
So it will, this will play, hand in glove with what you're trying to do, what we're trying to do.
Yes.
Anything else for Nick? Any other questions for Nick? Anybody have any topics for next month's meeting that is, that we should be mentioned? If not, I mean, they'll build themselves, but if anybody has any thoughts.
I know I was planning on going to that conference at Phipps about native plants.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if anybody else had any interest in going, but there are some very interesting topics. Ken, I thought of you actually when I was looking at the list of topics because the last one had to do with deer
Yeah,
management.
I was
So.
going to talk to you afterwards.
We'll want whoever does go on the e-waste tour probably to give a recap to the group. since that'll
Okay.
be At the end of this one.
Okay, good. Yep. Okay, and I'm considering that Phipps tour as well. Anything else?
Just want to say that I've been getting text messages from family in Los Angeles who had to
Oh.
evacuate. And yeah, I feel like environment matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that we remember that as we do our work because it's frightening, what environmental conditions can do, and how it can create problems in communities. So,
Absolutely.
And I want to hear how the fire started, like with all the fires in Canada, the vast majority of them were arson. And I'm really afraid that we're going to find out that these were arson also.
Yeah, it's disconcerting, but I know that part of the sustainability plan is about resiliency in a community.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we, have a lot on our plate today, but I think that's something that I'd love for us to take up at some point.
Well, I appreciate that. The sustainability certification and work, what we've done with it is that we just took the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And we just said, we definitely do this. We didn't change any of our habits. We didn't change anything in McCandless. We just say we do this or we don't do this. It was just binary. And so at some point, I'd like to look at it and say, where can we make some changes and what things can we make more real and actually, actionable as opposed to just saying, yeah, we just click that box.
Yeah.
So that is the goal. But we have massive goals here. Hey, anybody have anything else? 9:04.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor? That's it.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.